now we're going to take it to, we talked all about metaverse earlier, and we heard metaversity and the whole world that's out there, and we're going to dig down a little bit now on cybercrime and security and what it means for us in these dynamic times right now. And to present is Painter Randall from Connell Foley. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I'm going to just warn you that based upon the speakers that I saw, what I'm going to say today is not going to get anyone in any better mental stability mood. So why don't bad guys rob banks anymore? Cybersecurity has become the wild, wild west of the internet. The bad guys aren't robbing banks anymore because they're monetizing information from the comfort of their homes. They're stealing the new oil of the 21st century, personally identifiable information, protected health information, intellectual property, and even embarrassing information. And if they don't steal it from you, they're going to extort it from you through what we all know are ransomware attacks. They steal the information from you, and then if you don't pay the ransom, they publish it on the dark web. Just recently, with the Lehigh Valley Hospital system, they refused to pay a ransom. And in exchange, the threat actor published naked pictures of cancer patients on the dark web. So that's what we're dealing with. Cybersecurity is the #1 business risk. You can mitigate the risk, but you'll never be able to eliminate the risk. Have there been warnings? Certainly, many warnings. The U.S. intelligence warned about cybersecurity blinking lights, blinking red, for years. The FBI director compared ransomware attacks to 9/11. And our Energy Secretary Granholm confirmed that these threat actors can shut down our electric grid. So what do you do about it? Did we stand up straight? Did we improve our security? Certainly, especially the federal government. We took these warnings and we put measures in place so that we could be more secure. Some of these warnings, some of these threats were caused by economic uncertainty, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the threat to critical infrastructure, and guess what? Maria mentioned ChatGPT. Now we're looking at artificial intelligence. We've heard about TikTok. We've heard about ChatGPT. We heard about other types of AI. It's all going to present a more grave problem for us in the future. ChatGPT is a perfect example. It sounds great. It's fun. The kids like to use it. They're creating their college essays maybe from it. Tools are being put in place to pick up on whether or not ChatGPT is being used for applications, essays, college applications. But what people don't realize is that that very ChatGPT can be used to draft a wonderful social engineering phishing email that sounds very legitimate, that could be sent to your organization to trick someone to open an email so that malware is dropped and you have a cyber attack on its way. So there are dangers with some of these fun tools that come out. How many people in this room have actually sent out an email or circulated a policy on whether or not you can use TikTok or ChatGPT on your organization's issued devices? Has anyone done that? These are the types of things that you really need to be on the lookout for. I strongly recommend that you give some consideration to rolling out a policy like that within your organization, law firms especially. You don't want your associates or law clerks doing legal work on ChatGPT. I'm sure there's some younger associates or law clerks who don't know the dangers on the use of ChatGPT, and they try to put a brief or memo together quickly. You are waiving the attorney-client privilege by doing that. That information is always on the ChatGPT platform. Something to consider. So I mentioned artificial intelligence. I just want to mention a saying that our friend, Mr. Putin said about artificial intelligence. He said, whoever controls artificial intelligence will rule the world. So we really need to keep our eyes out on the development of artificial intelligence and how and when it's properly used. We've also seen changes in the privacy and security laws. Just last year, 5 states rolled out new privacy laws. So while we may be concerned about security, we need to coordinate that concern with the rollout of these privacy laws. The federal government has been focusing on protection of our critical infrastructure. People will see some of the things that the federal government is doing and assume that it applies to the private sector as well. It doesn't. They're taking control over the protection of the critical infrastructure of the federal agencies, but it also is good information for you to have. In 2021, after the Ukraine-Russian conflict arose, you may remember Biden said to Russia, we have 17 critical infrastructures. You are not allowed to attack any of them. It's hands off for you. But what he suggested to Russia was that everything else was okay. And what he probably failed to realize was that China's 30-year plan was to attack each and every one of those 17 critical infrastructures. So while we can worry about Russia, we still need to be really focused on China. Other things rolled out as a result of that Ukraine-Russia conflict, especially after the Colonial Pipeline attack. You all remember it was one of the biggest attacks on our oil supply pipeline. We had an executive order rolled out. We had a White House letter rolled out suggesting to the federal agencies and everyone else in the country that there are threats out there, and those threats are going to increase as these geopolitical conflicts increase. They suggested best practices. Why not take those best practices and implement them within your organization? CISA was also created in 2018. CISA is an arm of the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. They are the nation's cyber risk manager. They are excellent. If you haven't been on their website, I highly recommend that you go to it. They have excellent resources about best practices, how to prevent a ransomware attack, how to respond to a ransomware attack, who do you call. They have been doing an excellent job. And then, of course, just recently, they had the National Cybersecurity Strategy just rolled out. It's the country's newest cybersecurity strategy. I thought it was interesting because now they're putting a lot of focus on software developers. You build in security into your software, and if you don't, and there's an attack, and your software is responsible for the attack, these software manufacturers may become liable for the incident. We also see jail time. How many of you remember the Uber CIO who certainly did not disclose in an appropriate fashion a breach that Uber had suffered? He got jail time. The SEC is rolling out new cybersecurity regulations, and they're holding board members personally liable if they did not have proper cybersecurity measures in place at the time of the attack. So things are changing. People are becoming more aware, but unfortunately the threat landscape is getting worse. It's not getting any better. I used to say many years ago that the only way that you could fight these cyber attacks is artificial intelligence against artificial intelligence. And I'm still of the strong belief that that's what we're going to need. So what does the future hold in cybersecurity? You remember the old saying, it's not a matter of if, but when? Or there's two types of companies, those have been attacked or hacked, and those that will be attacked. Those quotes are still rolling out on a daily basis, and I used to tell people they really mean it. And some people would listen and improve their cybersecurity posture, and other people wouldn't. Some people would be attacked once and think, that's it. You know, they've suffered a painful experience, and they'll never have another one. And then 2 weeks later, because they didn't improve the vulnerabilities that were being exploited, they were attacked again. 75% of organizations have suffered a breach. What does that tell you? The landscape is going to get worse. Should the bad actors go back and rob banks? I don't think so. Cybercrime is costing our country this year $8 trillion. Why rob the banks when you can sit in your basement and attack people for financial gain? There are two types of attackers out there. We have the nation states, Russia, China, maybe some others, but those are the two key players. And then we just have purely cyber criminals who want to come out and pickpocket you. It's not that easy, but they certainly will attack you, and their motive is for financial gain. There are plenty of them out there. There is a group called Ransomware as a Service. The person who developed the malware will contact an affiliate group and have them do the actual attack in exchange for a percentage of the profit or the ransom payment that they get. So there are plenty of groups out there willing to get involved. You can buy a ransomware kit on the internet for $50. You don't even need a technical background. So let's just take a look at the predictions for 2023. If you don't know what the predictions are, you won't be able to prepare, right? I would highly recommend, by the way, that you designate someone within your organization to keep track of the intel out there. Watch the FBI advisements. Watch CISA advisements that come out. Just all you need to do is subscribe to their email. You'll get the notices. If you don't know what's going on out there, if you don't know what information you have within your organization, how are you going to protect it? So the time has come to take your head out of that rabbit hole and find out what the threat environment is looking like. So attacks, they're going to continue. Ransomware attacks, business email compromise attacks, social engineering attacks, or phishing as you know it. Ransomware attacks used to be number one. Then later in 2022, it came down to number 2, and business email compromise jumped up to number 1, okay? The ransomware attacks have evolved so significantly over the year. It started with crown jewel attack. You have some sensitive information that I want, and I can sell it on the dark web tomorrow and make $300. Then it evolved to the double extortion attack, where they come in, they conduct some recon, they come into the malware, drop some recon, they decide what they want, they run some search terms, okay? After they pull it, or we call it exfiltrate or acquire it from your organization, they have something valuable, and then they're going to detonate the ransomware. And if you don't pay the ransom, not only will you not get your data back, but they're going to publish it on the dark web, just like the hospital who had naked pictures of cancer patients posted on the dark web. So it's gotten very complicated. From the double extortion, it's gone to triple extortion. They get more aggressive. Now they're going to call your customers and say, Maria didn't pay the ransom. I just want to let you know. I have all these pictures of you. I have autopsy reports. I have your social security. Now, I'm going to post on the dark web. You better talk to Maria and tell her that that ransom needs to be paid. They're going to call your customers. It's progressed to quadruple, where they call the media to try to get them involved in forcing you to make a ransom payment. And finally, today, we're looking at quintuple ransomware attacks. They're not even encrypting anymore. They're not even going through that effort to encrypt. They're stealing the information, exfiltrating that information, and then they're extorting it from you. Pay me, or you don't get it back, or I'm going to publish it. So those ransomware attacks are going to continue. By the way, the average ransom payment global is $4.35 million. That at the cost of the breach. The average payment is $404,000. Some of these ransomware attacks evolve into a second attack as well. We call them DDoS attacks. So again, they're getting more and more complicated. We talked about the attackers, China and Russia. The attackers are becoming more brazen. Access methods, how are they getting into your system? Things that you need to know so that you can put up the protection. Phishing emails, phishing emails, phishing emails, social engineering attacks. Train your people. We'll get into that on best practices very briefly. Most of these cyber attacks are caused by tricking a human within your organization. They say amateurs hack systems, professionals hack people. So keep in mind that phishing is one of the ways they're getting in. Also, software vulnerabilities. How many people have patch management programs within your organization? Do you patch for critical vulnerabilities? Do you know when the critical vulnerabilities come out? We've had cases where there was a patch rolled out. They did nothing about it for 2 years. And then finally, they were attacked and suffered some pretty severe consequences. And then finally, RDP, open ports. These attackers will scan the internet. They look. They know what they're looking for. If you have an open RDP port, they get in. And they move laterally very quickly. So those are the ways they're getting in. Industry focus, education, technology. I heard someone was from manufacturing. Professional services, healthcare. They're all going to be targeted. Those are the key ones. The top 3, professional services, public entities, healthcare, manufacturing, and tech. Now, just because I mention them as targets today, it doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be a different target. Because of this landscape, CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, changed their focus. They were focused on prevention at one point, and now they changed to swift detection and response. If you read between the lines, they're saying you're going to get attacked, more than likely. I always say to my clients, you're not judged by the cyber attack as much as you are judged by your response effort. If you don't respond quickly within the first 72 hours of the attack, and you're not prepared to respond with an incident response team and plan, having conducted tabletop exercises in the past, you're going to find yourself in troubled waters. So CISA is now focused on swift detection and response. So that should tell you a lot with regard to what you need to do to be prepared. So let's not make it easy for the cyber criminals. It's very easy for them to get you caught up in an attack if you're not doing what you need to do on your end. You can take a holistic approach to cybersecurity and mitigate the risk, and you can do it to an acceptable level. People always will say to me, where do I start? I don't know where to start. Start with a good framework. NIST is an excellent framework to use. They want you to identify your key data. They want you to protect it. They want you to detect an incident. They want you to respond to an incident in a timely fashion. And then they want you to recover. By following that framework, you can probably put in some pretty good best practices with the right people. Cybersecurity is a team effort. Multi-factor authentication, password management, patch management. Start with the security risk assessment, endpoint detection, policies and procedures, access control. The list goes on, but one of the most important items on your best practice list is that incident response plan and team, and transferring your risk to a cyber liability policy of insurance. It'll make you sleep a lot better at night. How many people have cyber liability insurance? That's progress. But we have 2/3 of the room that still need to go out and buy a policy. I will always say to people, when they get involved in a cyber attack, you know, what security measures did you have in place? How did you respond? Because sooner or later, you may be involved in an attack where a regulatory authority will be knocking on your door and asking you, what did you have in place before this attack, and how did you respond? Those are the types of things that put you in a good defensive position. If you're in a position to say, we had no security measures in place, I delayed responding to the incident by 2 months, by 6 months, by 3 weeks when healthcare information is involved, you're going to be in the crosshairs of some regulatory enforcement body, or you're going to be caught up in third-party claims, privacy lawsuits, class action lawsuits. There are a lot of legal, regulatory, reputational, ethical issues that you could run into if you're not ready to respond. So the cyber threat landscape is on fire. It's not going to get any better. I think artificial intelligence is going to make it worse. You cannot put a $100 lock on a glass door. And if you can't afford security, you will not be able to afford a cyber breach. So stay safe out there, and read those resources that I mentioned earlier, and put a good, defensible, reasonable cybersecurity plan in place. Thanks.